Everybody, welcome to Ben Vicarage on this lovely Tuesday morning. Great to see you. Hope you've had a good night. Hope looking forward to a good day. And thank you, as always, for joining us for our Bible reflection today. And friends, it's a day of high drama today in chapter 36 of Isaiah. So without further ado, here we go. Isaiah chapter 36. Glasses on, here we go. In the 14th year of King Hezekiah, King Sennacherib of Assyria came up against all the fortified cities of Judah and captured them. The king of Assyria sent the Rabshakeh from Lachish to King Hezekiah at Jerusalem with a great army. He stood by the conduit of the upper pool of the highway to the fuller's field, and there came out to him Eliakim son of Hilkiah, who was in charge of the palace, and Shebna the secretary, and Joah son of Asaph the recorder. The Rabshakeh said to them, "Say to Hezekiah, thus says the great king, the king of Assyria, or what do you base this confidence of yours? Do you think that mere words are strategy and power for war? On whom do you rely that you rebelled against me? See, you are relying on Egypt, that broken reed of a staff, which will pierce the hand of anyone who leans on it. Such is Pharaoh, king of Egypt, to all who rely on him. But if you say to me, we rely on the Lord our God, is it not he whose high places and altars Hezekiah has removed, saying to Judah and Jerusalem, you shall worship before this altar? Come now, make a wager with my master, the king of Assyria. I will give you 2,000 horses if you are able on your part to set riders on them. How then will you repulse a single captain amongst the least of my master's servants when you rely on Egypt for chariots and for horsemen? Moreover, is it without the Lord that I have come up against this land to destroy it? The Lord said to me, go up against this land and destroy it. Then Eliakim, Shebna, and Joah said to the Rabshakeh, please speak to your servants in Aramaic, for we understand it. Do not speak to us in the language of Judah, within the hearing of the people on the wall. But the Rabshakeh said, has my master sent me to speak these words to your master and to you, and not to the people sitting on the wall, who are doomed with you to eat their own dung and drink their own urine? Then the Rabshakeh stood and called out with a loud voice in the language of Judah, hear the words of the great king, the king of Assyria. Thus says the king, do not let Hezekiah deceive you, for he will not be able to deliver you. Do not let Hezekiah make you rely on the Lord by saying, the Lord will surely deliver us. This city will not be given into the hand of the king of Assyria. Do not listen to Hezekiah, for thus says the king of Assyria, make your peace with me and come out to me. And every one of you will eat from your own vine and from your own fig tree and drink water from your own cistern, until I come and take you away into a land like your own land, a land of grain and vine, a land of bread and vineyards. Do not let Hezekiah mislead you by saying, the Lord will save us. Has any of the gods of the nations saved their land out of the hand of the king of Assyria? Where are the gods of Hamath and Arpad? Where are the gods of Sepharvaim? Have they delivered Samaria out of my hand? Who among all the gods of the countries have saved their countries from out of my hand, that the Lord should save Jerusalem out of my hand? But they were silent and answered him not a word, for the king's command was, do not answer him. Then Eliakim, the son of Hilkiah, who was in charge of the palace, and Shebna, the secretary, and Joah, son of Asaph, the recorder, came to Hezekiah with their clothes torn, and told him the words of the Rabshakeh. And this is the word of the Lord. Thanks be to God. So the year is 701 BC. We've heard quite a bit about this in the last few chapters already, and the place is Jerusalem. The king is Hezekiah, who's been on the throne now for 14 years. And they were under attack from Assyria, that great superpower in the north. Now, if you want to read more about this, you can also read about it in 2 Kings 18:13 to 2 Kings 20:21. That's a kind of more fuller account. But the king at the time, the king of Assyria, was a guy called Sennacherib, and he was under attack. And he'd already taken Samaria and various countries around, and lots of the places of Judah already, the surrounding area, but he came to Jerusalem. And essentially, he puts Jerusalem under a siege. Now, despite the fact that Hezekiah in the past had tried to make tribute to and tried to palm off, if you like, the king of Assyria, in a sense, that all broke down, and the king of Assyria was going to attack anyway. You hear more about it in Isaiah 33, we looked at last week, when he's called, O Destroyer, he's called. That's what Sennacherib is called. So you have the situation here when Hezekiah and the people are besieged, if you like, in Jerusalem. And the Assyrians, the mighty Assyrians, are around. And what happens is that Sennacherib doesn't come himself, but he sends three envoys to come. who are called Tartan, interesting enough. He's the supreme commander. I think the Scottish people quite like that. It's called supreme commander called Tartan. You've got the next one's called Radsarsis, who is the kind of chief officer. He's the kind of the number 2 officer. And you've got the Rabshakeh, who is the field officer, who basically does the talking. So you've got 3 of these people come from Sennacherib, and they talk to Eliakim from Jerusalem. So the kings don't actually talk to each other. You get envoys sent from Assyria who talk to envoys in Judah, and that's kind of how it works in this reading today. And what's interesting here is before they attack, which they've clearly got planned to do, what the Assyrians do is they seek to undermine the confidence of the inhabitants of Jerusalem. And if you read carefully, you can kind of see what they do. But what the real key is when he says, "In who do you trust?" It says to Hezekiah, and this really hits the nail on the head. In who do you trust? You know, you think you can stand up against us. Who you putting your trust in? That's the absolute key. Because what the Assyrian now try and do, what the Rabshakeh tries to do, is undermine the confidence of the inhabitants of Jerusalem. And so he starts off with attacking them intellectually. He says, in verse 5, "Do you think that your words and strategy are going to be enough to keep us away?" So he attacks them intellectually. Then in verse 6, he attacks their friends. So he attacks they tried to form a thing with Egypt, which he describes as like a broken reed. So he says, not only your strategy, your intellect's not going to help you, neither are the friends, but they've let you down too. Then he goes, he undermines the Lord as well. In verse 7, he undermines the Lord. And essentially he says, and this is quite interesting, because you think you're relying on the Lord, but do you think I would have got where I am if God hadn't been with me? There's kind of in there. And in fact, that is a quite complicated theological issue, because God has been with them to bring about judgment. But what God did not tell them to do was to destroy Jerusalem, as we found out in Isaiah 33 last week. Then he goes to undermine their strength. And he says, even if I was to give you 3,000 horses, you still wouldn't be able to stand up against the weakest. So far he's undermined their intellect, he's undermined their friends, he's undermined their faith, he's undermined their strength. And then he goes on to say, do you think that trusting in God will be enough? When other gods, I've attacked lots of other places around. You had the gods of Assyria. The gods of Syria, Arpad, and the gods of the Philistines. Do you think your God is going to help you now? He also sows division as well. That's that thing about will you talk to us in Aramaic? Because what the people of Jerusalem say, please don't talk in the common language, because we don't want the people to hear. And again, that thing always makes little boys laugh, I want to tell everyone, including the people who, because they're going to be under siege, they're going to be drinking their urine, and always make little boys laugh. That bit doesn't, that funny thing. But so he undermined, he tries to seek division by what I think in the Second World War it was called doom and despondency. These hard, these threatening words, make sure everyone hears them. So thus creating division within the people too. And in the end, he promises them false promises. At the moment you're going to be drinking urine, but soon you if you do what the king of Assyria says, then you'll find a place where you can drink wine from your own cistern and so on. So he sows them false promises as well. So notice what the Rabshakeh does. He undermines them intellectually. He undermines their friends. He undermines their faith. He undermines their strength. He undermines their faith again, their trust in God. He gives them false promises, and he's trying to sow division amongst them. So what Rabshakeh's doing here is undermining the confidence, undermining the faith of the people of Jerusalem at the time. Setting doom and despondency, just undermining their faith in God, undermining everything about them in the hope that they would capitulate. And you hear more about it in what happens in tomorrow's reading, or Thursday's reading. But what's quite interesting is that, of course, later on, 6 or 7 years later, you have Jesus, who begins his ministry in the desert. And he gets baptized, he goes into the desert. And then the devil gets together with Jesus and undermines Jesus' faith. If you are the Son of God, then turn these stones into bread. If you're the Son of God, wow everybody over by jumping off the temple and let's catch you. If you're the Son of God, then do worship me and I'll give you everything and so on. So again, undermining Satan trying to undermine the faith of Jesus. And I suppose the message for us, I would say today, is that there are things today. As one of my commentators says, this word from Rabshakeh could have been written by Satan himself. There are things that would undermine our faith, that would, try and undermine the intellectual of our faith, to undermine the strength, our faith in the strength of God, to undermine our trust, to undermine our confidence in our own faith, and to try and distract us away, to try and make us frightened. And I think it's no surprise that Jesus and God says that more than anything else in the Bible, do not be afraid. But we can trust in God, and our faith is strong. We are trusting a God who's stronger than everything, a God who made everything, a God who loved us more than we could ever know. And our faith tells us that God is more good, more powerful, more loving than anything we could ever imagine. But other things will come in sometimes, like Rabshakeh here, to undermine our faith. You can't believe that sort of thing, can you? Surely clever people don't believe that kind of thing. Look at the state of the church these days. On this kind of thing. Did God help you then? And all this sort of stuff kind of comes in and can undermine our faith. The message here for us is to be aware that things can happen, and to make sure that we keep trusting, keep believing, keep going for it with God, keep putting ourselves in a position where we have to trust in God, where God is with us, to know that whatever anything and anyone may say, we can say, get behind me, Satan. I'm going to worship God. I worship him. And Rabshakeh says, in who do you put your trust? The answer to our question is, I trust in God. I trust in Jesus, without fail and without fear. Bless you, my friends. Have a lovely day. Enjoy your Tuesday. Thank you for watching. Do please share this message with your friends. Keep close to God today. May you know God with you very closely. Have a lovely day.